The Cuyahoga County Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, June 4th is now called to order. Andrea, would you please call the roll?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is now 2:11 p.m. As a reminder to all in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Sweeney. I know he's here. Mr. Byrne.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Schran.
Here.
Ms. Conwell. Present. Ms. Turner.
Present.
Ms. Stevens. Ms. Stevens is absent at the moment. Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Present.
Council President Jones.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. Andrea, has anyone signed in for public comment?
No public comment has been received.
All right, at this time, if you would read the item into the record.
Okay. We're going to go out of order at this time. We're going to go to presentation number 5, David Gilbert.
Good afternoon. My name is John Pinney. I have the pleasure of serving as the board chair of Destination Cleveland. And first of all, I understand that you have a packed agenda, so we're going to be as brief as possible. But on behalf of the 35 civic leaders that comprise our board, we want to say thank you for the partnership, for the support, and we're pleased to report that the organization is really doing tremendous things for the community right now. We're firing on all cylinders. 2024 is shaping up to be an incredible year. We have one of our biggest events coming up, and David will talk about ASAE. We're very pleased with where we are as an organization. Our industry partners are very pleased with the performance. And on behalf of the board, we're very pleased to have what we think is the very best staff and organization operating in the country right now. We have incredible continuity from a leadership standpoint, and our partnership with the Sports Commission, led by David and that staff, has been fantastic, resulting in really incredible events. And so we're going to continue the momentum. And as a board, it's our job to make sure that we are stewards of the county's bed tax dollars. And I can report to you that we are a very active, engaged board from an oversight standpoint, and we take our fiduciary obligations very seriously. And so, again, on behalf of the board and the staff of Destination Cleveland and our various partners in the hospitality, entertainment, and tourism industry, we want to say thank you for your support and partnership. I'm accompanied by Mr. Brian Zimmerman, a member of our executive committee. He's also the chair of our public affairs committee. We do our very best to make sure that we're staying connected with the community, and we look forward to answering any questions. But I'll turn it now over to David, and thank you again.
All right, thank you. Dave?
Thanks, John. Thanks very much for having me. If we get the presentation up. Each year we give a presentation to County Council about the work of Destination Cleveland and our activities, and I'd say most importantly our progress. We're in a unique industry. It's called Convention Visitors Bureau, Destination Marketing Organizations that are funded, all of our peers, hundreds across the country, all funded by hotel bed tax. And our job is to use those dollars to compete against other markets around the region, around the country, to get a bigger share of the visitor dollar into our region than our peers. And ultimately, it's about ROI. And what we're going to talk about today is just show you a lot of our activities, but also how are we producing? How are we bringing more dollars in than our peers? And we are uniquely tasked to do what we do. We are the only organization in our county and really in a big picture scale regionally to do what we do, to market our city outside of the area. We're creative, we're entrepreneurial, we're very data driven, and as John mentioned, we're in the midst of a really good year and a lot of great things over the past couple of years. I'm not going to read everything about our vision, our mission. I did want to just say there's really 4 things when we define what we do. There's 4 things that we do. Number 1, we attract people to Cleveland. We attract visitors to Cleveland. That's our job. Number 2, our job is to enhance the perception of this community. We all know it's something that we have been dogged with for, quite frankly, a couple generations. It's changing dramatically, and we are on it every day. Third, we do everything we can to enhance and amplify the experience for the visitors who are here. We're the only group that thinks about it on that level, and a lot of things we do we'll talk about. And lastly, we've really gotten into this over the past several years. How do we use our capabilities to help this community and other organizations advance what they do by bring our brand, our other unique capabilities to the table to advance this community, both short and long term. Again, our job, compete. Our job is to compete against other communities. Our job is to bring more dollars in than they do. It's all about ROI, and we are the group that serves as our community's consumer marketing organization. When you see those Pure Michigan ads on TV, we're doing the same thing in Michigan. A lot of the work we do in that regard you don't see, but we're out there doing it, and ultimately it's the results that make a difference. We have a staff of about 60 people. I'd say it's roughly average size for our type of organization in our type of market, and we really are divided into 4 areas: destination marketing, the communications, the PR, the sales and services for meetings and conventions. That's a whole separate area. We have 18 full-time people doing nothing but selling meetings and conventions in this community, and we're doing extraordinarily well. We are filling up the convention center that this county owns. Destination management, all around the experience, and then organization management, running the organization. We have a great board. The county appoints 2 members to the board. These are the types of people: civic leaders, corporate leaders, public sector leaders, and a lot of other folks around our industry, hotels, attractions, and others. Our funding model, as you all know, we are funded by a county-wide hotel occupancy tax. It's a little, there's a number of ways that it's slice and dice, but the best way to think about it, in the end, it's governed by state law. And the county has an allowable 6.5%, Cuyahoga County, an allowable 6.5% bed tax. In the end, with what comes into our organization, then some that comes out, we receive between 50 and 55% of that. And this year, our total budget, I'll get to, is about $19.5 million, very close to the average of what our same type of organization in Pittsburgh, Columbus, Nashville, are other types of markets. The city of Cleveland adds another 3% hotel occupancy tax. Cities anywhere in the state have the ability to levy their own bed taxes. The big thing is we watch what we spend. We look at our industry, and if you look here, when we look at management and general expenses, we are below our industry peer set, and the percentage of dollars we spend on salaries versus outside marketing, sales, those types of things is also below our industry. We track that very carefully every year, salary studies and others, to know that we're within the right range of what we do and what we spend. This is an allocation of what we spend on, and I think this is all within our audit. We're audited privately, we're audited by the state. I think important that the number on the bottom is important. We only spend 13% on management and general organizational expenses. Most nonprofits, you want to be 20% or below, and we do a really good job, we think, at keeping that to only 13%. Those other dollars are spent on bringing dollars back. What we know in our latest research, we'll get some more in the fall for 2023, but in 22, this is the ROI. According to an economic impact study, we use the same firm that the state uses. Tourism generated $314 million directly in county taxes. There's others in city and other county taxes, a 12% increase from the year before. And if you take every household in Cuyahoga County and you divide it, it's $1,330 that if these dollars didn't come in, every household in Cuyahoga County would need it to pay an additional $1,330 to equal those taxes. Big economic impact. At the end of the day, it gets down to jobs. Nearly 70,000 jobs, and it has been a significant growth industry over the past decade. Big glitch for the entire country during COVID. We have now come to that and surpassed it, and we're really proud of the work to bring this back. This is based on these studies that, again, it's expected that this industry between now and 2030 will employ an additional 4,000 people, a growth industry, and approximately 1 in every 10 jobs in the county is in the travel and tourism industry based on the SEC codes that the federal government uses to make up that basket. So big picture, what do we do? Destination marketing, brand management, advertising, digital and web. Again, we act as this community's branding organization and consumer marketing organization. Our job is to market, advertise, social media to get people to consider visiting Cleveland. And when I say Cleveland, I don't mean the municipality of. That's the generic term. You know, we always kind of joke about if you'd wear a Cleveland T-shirt, you're a Clevelander. And you know, quite frankly, a person outside in Toledo or in Indianapolis or in Chicago that might think of visiting, they don't really think of, oh, am I going to visit Shaker Heights or Westlake or the city of Cleveland? Our job is to get them to consider coming here to this region. When they do, they use the set of tools that we provide. What do they love? Is it arts? Is it outdoors? Is it sports? Is it recreation? Is it events? And we make sure that we connect with them to come here and do those things. When you see these types of headlines anywhere in the country, I would tell you that 9 out of 10 times it is our team's work that led to these headlines. We bring in dozens of travel writers every year. We are out there promoting Cleveland to national media all over the country, sometimes all over the world. A lot of you may have seen the Wall Street Journal headline that Cleveland is the center of the world. I think that was the exact headline during Women's Final Four in the Eclipse. That was us. Now, we didn't create the Eclipse. You know, the Women's Final Four is the event we attracted here, but we made sure the media knew. We made sure that our community was the media epicenter for the Eclipse traveling across the country. Started working on that years ahead of time. These things don't happen by accident. This year, we did our first ever national marketing campaign. Now, the budget we spend in marketing, you know, we spend a couple $1 million directly in outside advertising. That is nothing. That's a drop when you think you're against not only other cities, other regions, but the Coca-Colas of the world and so on. So we did a very creative thing. I don't take credit, our team did, but we said, think big. We did a national campaign around the Puppy Bowl. Some of you may know what this is. It goes on, it's always on, you know, we couldn't afford to advertise on the Super Bowl, but we did a whole campaign on the Puppy Bowl. It received and it was not just a campaign. We did an incredible, our team, an amazing social media campaign, things that lasted months around it. But at the end of the day, the results were outstanding. The number of people that saw it, that commented on it, and when we look at our engagement scores, and again, these are all sort of marketing speak, but what it shows is this had big reach, and it was written about in a lot of national marketing publications about the creativity of a city like Cleveland being part of something like this. And we're happy to send you more of the commercials and all that kind of stuff. Convention sales, our team is knocking it out of the park. This year, we're gonna have 240 events totaling over 225,000 room nights. Again, our job is to fill this convention center and other facilities. We work with IX Center, other places, but at the end of the day, that is what our job is. We always say our job is not to fill hotel rooms. Our job is to get more people to come to Cleveland, and it will turn the turnstiles at the Rock Hall. It will get more people in the neighborhoods. It will fill more hotel rooms. And you look, we're booking things out all the way to 2029. We are now truly a significant mid-sized convention city. And we are beating major players around the country every week. Some of the major events this year, some of these like Women's Final Four, Pan Am Masters Games, Sports Commission brought to town and ran. Destination Cleveland did all the destination marketing. We just landed the Urban League National Conference. Hasn't been announced formally, but their national conference coming to Cleveland, just got the contract signed this week. As John mentioned, ASAE, this is a big one. American Society of Association Executives, the largest gathering of meeting planning decision makers in the country. We're spending over $2 million with this group coming to town. It's estimated based on past cities that host it, and we beat out Philadelphia, Boston, other major cities to host this, somewhere between $200 and $500 million in new convention business in the first 5 years after hosting this. Really a big deal that Cleveland is hosting this. All these decision makers that many of them have never seen Cleveland or haven't seen it in years. Huge for us. I'm not going to go into all the detail on destination management, but this is all about the kinds of things we do. We do a lot of research. So when we saw research that showed consumers, tourists in Cleveland said, We don't have a great wayfinding system. We did it. We made sure throughout downtown in a lot of our neighborhoods, we're doing a major lighting project. We're doing a lot of other interventions to make sure, be the eyes and ears of this community, looking at our city through a visitor lens. Some of the things we do, we're happy to do. Many that we do, we work with other partners like the county, the city, Downtown Cleveland Alliance, and others to help prod getting things done, but it gets them done. We are the ones who look at this city through the visitor lens. We're getting very involved in helping to promote experiences in our neighborhoods. How do we take these billions of visitor dollars, get them out into our neighborhoods, going out neighborhood by neighborhood, identifying great experiences and having these folks working with them to develop those that we can then market. We do all kinds of different passports, brewery, international, Black history, many others, to get people on their iPhone to do experiences while they're in Cleveland. And if they get so many, we give them T-shirts, mugs, other things. It works brilliantly. But these are the things that if we didn't do, they wouldn't exist. Wayfinding, I mentioned the lighting, murals with the brand, the Script Cleveland signs. And lastly, we're doing an awful lot now to engage our locals. I mean, look, we all market through this thing right here. You know, we all have these networks. We do a lot of research on what Clevelanders think of their own city. They love their city. We over-index in that. So let's activate our locals by the hundreds, by the thousands, by the tens of thousands to be marketing what they love most to their network, and it's working, and it's free. And our job is to get them engaged, give them the tools, and we think we're actually leading the country in the engagement of locals in attracting meetings, conventions, and tourists. And again, what's up next is more of that engagement, providing those toolkits. We don't have to do all the work. We can get the people in this community who love this community to do a lot of the work for us. And bottom line, we're growing. We're growing a lot. Since 2011, we've increased the number of visitors to Cleveland by 20%. For 8 of the last 10 years, the 2 years we haven't were during COVID, where everything was upside down. The growth in the number of visitors for leisure travel and convention business grew faster than the national average, and we'll get those numbers in the fall, and we're confident we're going to be back up above. This year, I would tell you, in April, our hotels had the best month in the history of this city. And it was Women's Final Four, other major meetings, other major conventions, but people know Cleveland. Our hotels are doing extraordinarily well, and our job is to try and keep it that way. So that's all. I know I went fast. There's a lot there, but I thought I'd just leave time to answer any questions now, or anybody, please. I know a lot of you. Some of you I don't know as well. You can pick up the phone anytime and just call my cell if you have anything that you need, any questions.
Thank you, Dave. At this time, we're going to open it up to council. Are there any questions, comments? Councilman Gallagher.
Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Good, Councilman, thank you.
Hey, you mentioned the bed tax. So Cuyahoga County 6.5, Cleveland's 3. Is there a cap on that?
There is on the county bed tax, and that's governed by the state. So the state sets the limit their limit is 5%. There was an extra 1.5% that was put into place in '93, originally to pay the bonds to build the Rock Hall. Now it goes to it was by a vote of county, city, and those two. It was some goes to us, some goes to the Rock Hall. So by state law, it's capped at 6% without a change in state law.
Okay.
And then cities can levy. There is no limit on what cities can levy on top of that.
Wow, good to be a city. Thanks.
Sure.
Councilman Miller, and then Councilwoman Simon.
So, Mr. President, to Mr. Gilbert, I know that for a long time we had the goal of getting the 20 million visitor mark, and we got pretty close in the late teens, but then COVID-19 hit, and my question is, have we gotten there yet since then?
Thank you, Councilman. We were at 19.6 before COVID. In 20, we know we would have hit it. We believe that when we get the number for 23, we ought to be there. So we know from at least hotel occupancy rate, all of that, we are back to where we were, or, within a point or so prior to COVID. And we expect the number to be there, certainly in 23, if not for sure in 24.
Mr. President, Mr. Gilbert, second question. There's a whole lot of major capital projects out there on our plate in the works, under discussion, and so on. And is Destination Cleveland having any plans to in the future to help fund some of these things and use some of your bed tax revenue to help with some of these capital needs?
Thank you, Councilman. Really good question. We look at our job is to fill, we are the only ones that our job is to fill whatever's here. Whether it's our arts institutions, whether it's our sports venues, and everything in between, large and small. And we truly believe that we have shown that we have a significant ROI. And our job is to take the tools in the tool belt of this community and utilize all of those to the best we can. We really believe that if you continue, if dollars are taken, less people will come here. And that's sort of been the stance. I would say if we weren't able to show that we were doing a better job than our peers at using those dollars to bring people here, we think it'd be a different argument. But we believe strongly there would be a direct correlation that if dollars were taken from Destination Cleveland's budget to build something, overall, you would have less people coming here. We would have less dollars to do what we do, and therefore less ROI.
Thank you. Councilwoman Simon?
Thank you, through the president, to Mr. Gilbert. Good afternoon. It's good to see you.
Hi, Councilman.
Thank you. My question is, I understand tourism is up. The numbers look great. The trajectory is impressive. A lot has to do with your marketing and the conventions and what you bring in, but what otherwise is attracting people here to Cleveland? Is it our zoo? Is it the cultural institutions, the Rock? What brings people here other than these events?
Thank you, Councilman. What we know is we track a lot of this. I think I will tell you I have two answers. From a broad perspective, the perception of Cleveland changing, we do a lot of research on whether people would consider Cleveland as a place to visit. And it continues to change over time. And that doesn't necessarily have to do with any one thing. It doesn't have to do with more arts, more sports, more outdoors. It's the fact that the perception of Cleveland continues to change and more people are open to the idea. I believe that is number one. If you look at we are extraordinarily a high events-driven community, and we over-index in that, but those bring enormous numbers of people. Small example, we just got awarded a couple months ago, and Destination Cleveland's involved, Sports Commission was involved, WWE SummerSlams. It may not be into WWE. That event already has sold well over 40,000 tickets. 60% of those are from people outside of Cuyahoga County. So that one event, it will sell out Brown Stadium. That one event will bring 35,000, 40,000 people into town, one event. And we are the Rock Hall inductions, all these major sporting events. Overall, that's number one. I would say we are a big sports are a big driver. Outdoors, most people don't think of us as an outdoors city. We know it, but more and more it's being discovered, and a lot of people come here between the Metro Parks National Park, and arts is another big one. Those tend to be the biggest drivers, and when we do different campaigns, it tends to focus on those areas more than anything else.
Okay, thank you. And hopefully we can talk about the lake in the future as being part of that outdoor experience.
Yes, we could talk a lot about, thank you, would love to, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Councilman Schron?
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Gilbert, do we have much of a link down to the national park? Because I know you mentioned it, and I know that there's serious discussion about connecting the Cuyahoga Valley Railroad down to there. Is that something that the Destination Cleveland is playing a role at all in that conversation?
So thank you, Councilman. I'd say not as much in the train, but I do want to address the national park. To me, you give a perfect example of where we see our role. And Councilman Miller, I think this gets to your point. So right now, you have the Towpath Trail. Fantastic. Goes all the way down to Zoro, Ohio. Because of the work of a lot of other organizations, not us, but a lot of other organizations, the Metro Parks, Cleveland Foundation, many others, other than a very, very small section, and it's getting done, you can ride your bike from Edgewater Park to Zoro, Ohio. What we as an organization are doing right now, we have pulled together all the stakeholders. So look, our job is not to build the infrastructure, but we are working with all the stakeholders to develop a plan to turn that into a major through cycling destination, meaning we will have tens of thousands of people. We will market and help with signage and other things, have tens of thousands of people that will come from outside of our market to Northeast Ohio to ride their bike for 1, 2, or 3 days from Zoro, Ohio to downtown Cleveland. Right now, very few do it because they don't know about it. And by the way, they're going to start and end right here in downtown Cleveland. So we see our job is how do we work on not building the dots, but connecting the dots, marketing them to bring the people to town. So what I will tell you is it's incredible that we have this infrastructure over 100 miles from downtown to Zoro, Ohio, with amazing things in between. You go through downtown Akron, you go through a national park. Our job is going to make sure that the country knows it and help the infrastructure be here so that we get many, many more people to do it. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it's my understanding, though, that the railroad and the biking trails are now linked, that you put the bike on, you take the bike part of the way down there, then you come back on the train, or vice versa. So they have really done a lot to coordinate the biking.
Part of the way, yes, but the train right now stops in Independence.
Right.
So we want people, there's a trail that goes from a little bit west of Pittsburgh to near DC. And a recent study showed 120,000 through riders a year. 120,000 that ride their bike multi-day on that trail. And there's infrastructure where you can rent bikes, you can get people to take you from one side to the other. We need our piece of that action because we've got the infrastructure. We haven't built it up as in people's consciousness. So I would say the connections are good, they can be better, and it can be marketed a lot better.
Ern, then Sweeney.
Hello, Dave. Welcome.
Thanks, Councilman.
You mentioned that we've seen the advertisement, the marketing of Michigan here in Cleveland. We do the same in Michigan. Any other cities or states that we also market in?
Yeah, we normally do our big markets, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Chicago. We do a little in Atlanta, a little bit in Philadelphia. Those are our primary markets, Indianapolis, where we market. And we do a lot of market research to determine where we'd get the biggest bang for the buck. And again, we're a drive destination. So for us to say we're going to do advertising in Salt Lake City, we're just not going to get a big bang for the buck for people to come. So we're the type of destination that people will drive for a 2-night, 3-day visit. So that's where we really focus most of our advertising. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. President. Hello, Mr. CEO. How are you?
Hello, Councilman.
I always describe Destination Cleveland as the entity that brings the largest return of our tax dollars invested in you, and it continues.
Thank you.
Just on Councilwoman Simon's thought process, is Cleveland itself, like where do I want to go, right? Phoenix, Pittsburgh. Is Cleveland there yet? I just want to go to Cleveland because there's so much cool stuff. Can you talk about that?
What I would it's getting there. I mean, here, I look at, when we look at aspirational cities, a lot of people, well, let's look at the biggest cities. To me, aspirational cities are ones where you say the name of the city and people think, I want Nashville. It's probably the latest it city. You just think, I'd love to go there. Yeah. I would say we're not there yet, but I think one of the things I always have to keep in mind, and oftentimes we remind people, us in this room are not the audience. We know this city, we love this city, we love this community. What we do know from research is when people come here, especially those who've never been here, their perception changes drastically. So our job, we always talk about, our job is to get a lot of first dates for Cleveland, and then we turn them into long-term relationships. So I would say we're not there, even though we might think, you hear the word Cleveland, we know how cool it is, we know the great stuff to do. Someone in Indianapolis may not know that. They probably think the same thing about their city. Our job is to pound away on it day in and day out to get them to consider it, to be here, and then spread the word. But I would tell you, from the research we've done, we are so far ahead of where we were 10 years ago.
And through the chair, I agree totally. Keep up the good work, and your board is a rock star board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
One of the things that, by your reference to becoming the dating person or other, I noticed that one of the trade associations I belong to is a returning veteran now. They're coming back for the second time to bring, they were one of the first industrial conventions to come here when you first opened up, and I see that they're coming back here in 2026. What's the likelihood that are we chasing returning conventions? Because those are generally the easiest. The sale you already have is easier to get the next sale if it's the same client.
Yeah, Councilman.
What's our success rate of returning companies?
We're seeing a lot more of that, which is really exciting. And a lot of these, it takes time. They go across the country. They're folks who experience new things, but we are starting to see a lot more repeat business. Thank you, because you were a big part of bringing that one to town, and we are seeing it a lot more. We're signing a lot of deals where a group will say, we'll sign every third year for you for the next 9 years. I would also add the expansion, which is almost done, of the convention center from the old Global Center, has made a big difference. There's a lot of groups that we have already booked that would not have been there had not this new space been available when they come here. And when this ASAE convention is here, that space is going to be brand new, and we're going to be able to sell the heck out of that. But short answer to your question is yes, we're seeing it, and it's really exciting.
All right, thank you, Dave. We
Thank you,
appreciate
Council
this
President.
update.
Thanks, everybody.
All right,
Appreciate it.
take care. All right, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2024-0129, making an award on requisition 12232 and authorizing a lease bearing agreement with Cleveland Superior LLC for the lease of space located at 1801 Superior Avenue in the city of Cleveland. Anticipated to commence on January 31st, 2025, for an initial term of approximately 17 years in an amount not to exceed $91 million, which includes but is not limited to rent, initial capital expenditures, management fees, utilities, operating expenses, and a general contingency amount.
All right, Director Dever, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, council members. Michael Dever, Director of Public Works for Cuyahoga County. And with me is Ryan Jeffers, our real estate consultant with CBRE. We stand here before you today as I know that over the past 6 weeks now, we've had multiple conversations, questions going back and forth. We've actually had some additional reports prepared that have been given to the council, and hopefully we've been adequately have answered your questions. So we stand before you today to see if there's any other further questions or comments before hopefully we'll be able to take a vote on this measure. So thank you.
Any further comments, questions? Councilwoman Simon.
Oh, okay, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, Ryan, over the grainy detail of the lease, as well as getting the inspection on the system that was in question. I feel comfortable with all of that put together to support this resolution. So I just want to say thank you. It was important to me to know what the status of that system is. The cost is outrageous to replace, but I guess we can get parts. It just might take a while. Is that correct?
Yes, and thank you, Councilwoman. We stand here to answer everyone's question. We want everyone to feel comfortable on this vote before you. So it will take a little bit of time to get parts, but it's common for HVAC just within the industry right now. There's sometimes a lag, but in general, we feel very confident from Osborne's review also of the system that we're able to get all the necessary parts if it needs any repairs.
So what happens, what is the time frame to get parts such as these?
Well, I think it's more specific to which part it may be. Matt Reimer's with us also, and maybe Matt can just talk about specifically projects, parts on some of our own system.
Through the chair, President, if that's okay.
Feel free to come forward.
Hi, Matt.
Good afternoon, Matt Reimer with the Department of Public Works. Through the chair, or through the president to Councilwoman Simon. Yes, speaking in general terms, parts for cooling towers, air handling units, and chillers are generally pretty readily available. We're talking weeks worth of lead times, depending on the status. Not like a comparison point would be electrical equipment. Post-COVID is very delayed on a lot of types of electrical components, which we're not talking about here. So they're generally pretty readily available.
What happens, I mean, obviously, what will happen if there's a delay in getting parts and the system is not functioning? Do we bring space heaters in? Do we bring fans? How do we accommodate the voters and the employees and director over at the Board of Elections if something shuts down?
Yes, to that question, we have a lot of strategies. We maintain certain sizes of temporary cooling units. They're also very rentable as well, up to certain sizes. We have significant experience this out at the medical examiner facility where we've had some recent outages, and both our property manager and our trades have had to mobilize temporary cooling strategies to keep operations going. So those pieces of equipment are available through rental contracts and others. We also, depending on the time of year it is, can also economize our system so that we're drawing more outside air if we have the benefit of cooler nights or cool mornings to be able to bring cool or warm air in depending on the season as well.
Oh, I mean, it's not a perfect situation, nothing is. It's a, decent building in a good really good location with parking. So balancing act. Okay, thanks.
Councilwoman?
Yes, just wanted to make a comment. I wanted to thank you for having Osborne come out, do an up-to-date assessment. It was really unacceptable to me to go on a report that was done several years ago by the city of Cleveland. So appreciate it. I'm sure the taxpayers appreciate and glad that the report came out feasible for us to move forward. Thank you.
Councilman Miller?
Thank you, Mr. President, and to Director. First, to follow up on Ms. Simon's question, the difficulty in accessing parts for the HVAC equipment. Do we think that's a temporary situation still post-COVID-19, and that over time it's going to get better so that parts are readily available, or do we see this as an ongoing risk on a long-term basis?
Matt Reimer again with the Department of Public Works. I understand your question, Councilman. I just wanted to pull up the communication we had with Osborne Engineering on this exact question. And I'll just quote from their correspondence to us, which I believe was a question in response to council staff as well. Parts are presently being stocked and available for all of the major equipment installed at the site. Even the controls, in parentheses, which are a bit dated, still have replacements available for that vintage. From time to time, some may take a bit longer to secure due to supply delays, but this is equally true of new equipment. So that is the Osborne response to that question on this size and type of mechanical equipment at the 1801 Superior location.
So, Mr. President, to Mr. Reimer, I'm going to ask one other question, and it's something that I know you know something about because you've worked at it at the county level. And the question is that there are now smart systems that can be installed or added to the HVAC systems that help it work more efficiently and anticipate heating and cooling problems and improve comfort and reduce energy use. And my question is whether there's plans to use any of these kind of systems at 1801 Superior.
Through Council President to Councilman Miller, yes, the current property owner has made the investment and installed variable frequency drives on the chiller units in the mechanical equipment. These drives help moderate the level of demand on the chillers and serve as a significant energy savings piece of equipment and extension of the life of the equipment as well. Also, to the negotiating team, they have captured a sizable conversion from fluorescent to LED lighting in this tenant improvement package as well, which is a very significant benefit from an energy savings reduction measure that we would experience when we move in.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right.
President?
Yes.
Yeah, I just perked up a little bit at the term vintage parts. So we know if at some point in this term of the lease, these no longer are available as vintage, we would have to replace the system? That's
Through
a
Council
question.
President to Councilwoman Simon, that was a comment made to the technological components of the building automation system. And because they're technology-based, they do have certain obsolescence attached to them, and it's easy to modernize those building automation system components. That's the computer system behind all the mechanical equipment that gives the mechanical equipment its demand signals as to how it's supposed to operate. Those type of systems are pretty readily available for all buildings now.
Okay. Do you have any concerns about this functionality over the course and term of the lease?
I do not. This
Okay.
building would be relatively new compared to the rest of our inventory.
Okay, yeah,
If you're
that makes
comparing.
sense.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just, I want to talk to Anthony Pilati. Just, if Anthony would come up. Hi, Director.
Good afternoon.
What's your name?
Anthony Perlotti, Director of the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections.
Thank you. My question is, it looks like it's going to pass today. Are you satisfied to the best, as far as where it's at right now? To be able to function?
Yes, I am. I
Okay.
think the building will provide a lot of benefits to operations, to voters going forward. Parking, more space for line queuing and operations. And it's good for voters, it's good for candidates, good for employees.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank you. I look forward to having an upgraded and updated Board of Elections and voting process, and thank you for your patience. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I want to thank all council members for their consideration and support of the Board of Elections in this and all other things election-related. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pilati. And as many of our colleagues, I've had opportunity to visit the site as well. It's going to be an incredible upgrade for the Board of Elections, a lot more efficient and effective for our voters. I'm excited for that, for the residents because of that. And I'm also very proud of our colleagues who have taken the time to do the due diligence that they needed to do, and I respect their right to do all that they have done. And I look forward to the opportunity to vote right now. So at this time, we are going to have a vote. Madam Clerk?
Calling the roll. Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Has this been moved and seconded?
And this
Did I miss that?
is going to be a roll call vote.
Yeah, we
So
still need to
moved.
make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to pass
move it to
this.
the committee of the, out from the committee of the whole.
We
to
have a
full council.
motion from Councilwoman Conwell.
Second.
Is there a second? Seconded from Councilman Sweeney. All in, at this time, we have a roll call.
Motion of clarification, is
Yes.
that for second reading, or is that for a second reading suspension? Sorry. I'm just-
Third reading adoption.
Third
Oh,
reading.
okay,
correct.
sorry, I apologize, okay.
Favor
Now,
for the-
calling the roll. Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher? No. Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell?
Yes.
Ms. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens? Ms. Stevens is absent. Ms. Simon?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Council President Jones?
Yes.
Okay. The motion carries with 9 members voting in the affirmative and 1 casting a dissenting vote.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll move on to our next item.
Ordinance 2024-0004, repealing and replacing Chapter 703 of the County Code, establishing a Justice Center Capital Projects Fund within the General Fund, and directing the deposit of specified sales and use tax proceeds therein.
So with this item at this moment, we have our sponsor who has brought this to us, but we have, bear with me here. First, is there anyone who wants to speak to this first? Does the sponsor or anyone want to speak for this first?
Another point of clarification, there was an amendment by myself to that, which I think there was, I can't,
All right.
if we could refresh as to whether the amendment amended this so that it's already been attached to this. I don't recall.
So here, Councilman Schron, what we'll do is we will begin with you. If you have a proposed amendment, feel free to, because we did have a conversation in our last committee with you about a proposed amendment, if you are looking to present one today.
Well, I believe that the proposed amendment actually passed, so that's why I wanted to make sure that it's already been attached to the original legislation from Mr. Kelly.
That was not my understanding. Today,
Well, that's all, we're trying to get a clarification. Is if I need to move on it, I'll move on it.
Michael King, council staff. So just to clarify, last time in committee, there was a proposed substitute adopted, but it was the law department's suggested technical changes. Councilman Schron's amendment was discussed, I think, at length, but I don't believe there was a final vote on the merits of that amendment. So it is still before the council if someone wanted to remake that motion.
Thank you. That was my understanding. So Councilman Schron, you have the opportunity at this moment to make a motion for your proposed.
Right, Mr. King, though, wasn't the motion and the second already on the floor? I thought it was. We just didn't take a vote on it.
That is correct.
So it's already on the floor, it's already been moved, it's already been seconded, the amendment, I believe.
That was the case in the last committee. Procedurally, I don't know if we'd need another motion in a second, but it had been moved and seconded at the last committee.
And no changes to that proposed substitute.
It's either the amendment or the proposed substitute, yeah.
The law department's proposed substitute was adopted, and that's been reflected in today's agenda. The amendment before you today incorporates the language from that proposed substitute, but that was materially what was discussed at the last committee as well.
And Council President, the motions were withdrawn last time as well during the conversation.
Right now, we're at a moment where Councilman Schron, you have an
Okay.
opportunity to share your proposed substitute.
Okay.
And a motion and a second are still expected on what you present today.
Okay. For discussion purposes, the proposed amendment was to take maintenance out of the language specifically in there, and I believe that Mr. Kelly had seconded, so I will move that we add that language in that was submitted at the prior meeting, that added the language of I don't have it in front of me here. Do you have it in front of you, Mr. Kelly? Yeah, sorry about that, Mr. King.
Yes.
He's Mr. Kelly, you're
Well,
Mr. King.
can I, through Schron, I don't have any of these amendments in front of us, and it would be very helpful that.
Okay, that's fine.
I would be appreciated, because I expect at least 1 to 2 amendments. Are they on our desk? And if they are not, I apologize. Me too. We really need to be looking at what we're doing.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
It's not your
I thought
fault.
it was still on the floor. I apologize.
No, your amendment is here. Okay, I think we
Now on
should
the
look
floor.
at it.
It's now in your hands. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. That's just helpful to me.
Thank you. That's very, very understandable.
And there should be more amendments.
Schron, as the amendment, as your amendment is being passed out, is there anything more you want to say about your amendment?
There's not. It's just that the routine maintenance is not an item that's of a capital nature, and we are looking to fund the capital nature project for the Justice Center and fund the capital nature of the campus project. And maintenance costs, as none of us do, I don't believe, put routine maintenance into any other capital expenditures, whether it be for our home or for our business. They would stand as a separate item out there.
All right. Any discussion on Councilman Strawn and Councilman Pat Kelly's co-sponsoring of this proposed amendment?
Just a question.
Yes.
I guess as a lawyer, we usually define routine, but we don't need to do that here, right? We're just,
I would hope not, yes. Yeah.
oh, okay.
It's
Because
not
I would
the-
usually look for a definition, but
The
maintenance, so anything related to,
the desire to is to simplify it so things like a roof or broken windows and things of that nature are not part of what you would do for capitalization on a project. That's the kind of thing that you would find in Public Works would be doing as part of their maintenance that they have on any other building that they have in regards to with anything else in our inventory.
okay.
So,
Councilman Miller.
I know that over at Gateway, there's been long and extensive discussions about what's routine maintenance, what's a capital repair, and what's a major capital repair. And I think the language routine maintenance is not clear by itself. I mean, that could be defined in a number of different ways. So I express that concern about the lack of clarity in the language. I would also express that this language goes in the direction of making the legislation even more restrictive than it currently is, which I think is going in the wrong direction. So I don't support adding this language.
Do you understand the concept of maintenance?
I do.
Okay. Then routine maintenance would be just taking it to something that would not be of a capital nature, is the desire to, if we need to put more clarity around it, the idea is that maintenance is a maintenance item like maintaining lights, maintaining roofs, maintaining systems, as opposed to the capital that it takes to build the bricks and mortar, to put the furniture and equipment, to do all the things that it takes to set up this space out there. So it's to separate the two. I don't believe that any of us build routine or any kind of maintenance into any of our capital when we go to the bank and ask to borrow money to build a building or to build a house or anything of that nature. So it is imperative, I believe, to separate these two concepts here too.
So, Mr. President, to my colleagues, suppose a pretty major system wore out, like an HVAC system, since we've been talking about that, and I mean when it uses its useful life and it's no longer functioning, well, it needs to be maintained. It could be $100,000. I mean, is that routine maintenance or is that a capital repair? I mean, where do you draw the line? I think
You
it's
actually,
not
in that
clear.
sentence, you mixed two concepts together. One was you need to buy to fix the HVAC system, and then you need to maintain that system. Those are two different terms. If you have to buy a $200,000 or $300,000 HVAC system, that's clearly capital. If you need to put the new filters, the fans, the ventilators, the things that go into that system, that would be routine maintenance that you would do.
Suppose it was not a total replacement, but a very major repair.
If it becomes a capital major repair, it would be a capital expense. So if that's the major components of a system, in regards to it, it would be a capital expense that you put in. If it's talking about the, you know, the filters and the fans and the what it takes to clean out the system, the fear is on this, Mr. Miller, is that you would all of a sudden find that you've got maintenance, and I'll put the word routine in there, because the fear is that you now have, let's say we sell these bonds, and my number I've heard is going to be around $700 million to $800 million. If that money could be tapped for routine maintenance, for things like the labor costs, the service costs, things of that nature, is that really something that you want to come out of a capital budget? And I don't believe you would want that to come out of a capital budget. You would not want, because next thing you know, you're going to find that people are going to say, wow, this is a pot of a lot of money that we could be putting things in that historically are not a bricks and mortar expenditure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Any further discussion? Councilman Sweeney.
To my colleague, Councilman Schron, how about a busted pipe? What would that be? Water pipe? What would that be?
A $50 busted pipe?
No,
I don't care. You put a number on it. Yes. I don't believe that would be anything but maintenance, routine maintenance to fix the pipe. If you say if you're going to replace an entire sewer system around the project and have to dig it up, obviously that's going to move it into a capital number.
and through the president to my colleague, a major water pipe that over time gets worn out and it blows up and it's very expensive to fix. Is that regular routine or is that capital?
And if it's a single pipe, I would consider it to be a maintenance item.
Yeah, and consider. So all I want to do right here is try to define a little bit, and it benefits us, because the administration's going to, whatever administration's here, they're going to say, routine, 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 routine,
Absolutely.
routine. And then we have to fight them. So if we put some guardrails in of some definition, we can clarify specific legislation that is drafted without as many loopholes or ways around it is good legislating. And that's what I'm trying to get to right now. That's only specific on the amendment.
One of the elements where we could bring definition would be to bring the accountants in and ask them, at what point do you depreciate an item? And at what point do you expense an item? And if you want, that would be a way in which you could bring clarity to the word routine, but that's done all the time in accounting and finance.
And through the chair.
This is a capital number, this is a routine number, and it's very easy. We can bring and I have no problem with holding it, with pushing this.
A dollar amount would
It's
be
usually not
better
a
than
dollar
nothing.
amount, it's usually a longevity or a length of service or something of that nature, because in my own business, we wrestle with all the time. If we buy a $300,000 machine tool, it's going to be a capital item. If we're buying a $10 or $50, $200 drill, it's not going to be a capital.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get, if there's through the chair or through my president, if there is a dollar amount over 500, or just like our Board of Control, if it's over this much, we do this. If it's under this much, they don't need permission. So that's just my thoughts on the very specific
Well, and as we,
legislation.
you raise a,
That's my thoughts on the specific amendment. I have more thoughts on the legislation when it comes up.
yeah, and you raise a great point, because we've already heard that the county executive wants to move that $500,000 number to $1.5 million.
That's a whole nother stuff.
That's another, I know, but my point is, let's put fences around this item, because this is going to be a $700 million or $800 million bond we're going to float, minimum, for this, I believe.
I just
don't want to see it going out for routine expenses where salary or labor or any of those things could be tapped very easily for that concept. And you can find labor contracts using this as some way that we can wouldn't be able to put a fence around it.
And through the chair, I just don't want to define the word routine as a very low dollar amount. Routine sounds like not much, but it could be 500,000. That's what my threshold would be immediately, of not too much thought into it. But I don't want to say anything over $100, because that's routine, would not be eligible. So that's just my thoughts. So thank you, Mr. President.
Any further comments?
Councilman Byrne.
Councilman?
Yes, through the president. Mr. Schron, you mentioned roof as an example. I do have some experience with capital projects and roofs. A patch of a roof is one thing, but I've never experienced replacing a roof that wasn't a capital expense.
Right, and if we are looking at a capital replacement of a roof of a building that they're going to tell us is good for 30 years, this body will not be around, and I would like to put a fence around that, to be quite candid, so that we don't get smaller projects to actually start eating away at our pool of money. And so if you've already got a warranty from the roofer for a 30-year warranty, we won't be looking at this. This will be, these bonds will be paid off in theory before you would ever be looking at a roof, I hope, of a roof system.
But I also think that, through the president, I also think that some of the comments with some of the concerns routine, that there should be, as Councilman Sweeney suggested, a guardrail or a threshold put in there so that there is more clarity.
Yeah, and I would encourage us, if we want to bring the treasurer in, so let's sit down and ask this, because the treasurer is going to be stuck between a rock and a hard spot when all this money comes here. They're going to be stuck with, actually, is it going to be a routine expense that the county executive wants to use the money for, or is it going to be for truly a major capital expenditure? And I would like to see, when we float these bonds, because the bond holder, the bond buyer, I believe, is buying it for the security of a capital purchase. If for example, it's $700 million, Mr. Burns, and that's what we're going to spend it on, I think the bondholder is expecting that that's what those bond proceeds are going to be used on, not for doing a new furnace or for doing a new heating system. I think they're expecting that we're building a building with these numbers.
And through the president, just for clarification, so Mr. Schron, even if it isn't 30 years, if this resolution is passed, then the debate happens in 30 years, whether that's a routine maintenance or capital?
I would truly think that a body 30 years from now will not be anybody sitting at this table, and they will have the ability to amend that at that point in time if they truly believe that that's the case. Because if you recall from my remarks, in the early on, when I wanted this to be on the ballot, I truly believe, and I work with staff, that we're going to be throwing off by year 30 over $1 billion extra dollars unrelated to the expenditure on those buildings. $1 billion. So now that county executive will have that ability to do that. And I'm sure that a body 30 years from now is going to say the same thing that the rationale that we're hearing right now from the executive's office is we like the flexibility we had because they miscalculated on the last time this tax was increased, went from 41 million to 72 million per year. It's throwing off almost an extra $30 million. We're going to be throwing off $1 billion extra dollars by the year 30. So I have no worry that a county executive in 30 years from now will have the ability and the freedom to do whatever they need to if they want to amend this. But I want to put a fence around it during the construction period.
Any further questions?
I do. No, that's why I brought up a definition.
Yeah, I have no
That's
problem
exactly
bringing
why.
more specificity.
We need a definition paragraph. So you're going to see, I don't think we need to consider my proposed amendment about emergency. This will be within the discussion of how we define maintenance and repairs. I go back again to the sprinkler system at the Juvenile Justice Center. Soon after opening, we found out that they were too low, and the detainees were able to reach the sprinklers and just flooded the place. And we had to rush in and use money, general fund, I believe, to hurry up and correct that unanticipated large cost. So I want to make sure that when we do this, we have some protection against things, or for unexpected things that are probably going to happen with a new jail.
And I don't profess to be the county accountant, but under your exact issue, if you have to reopen the ceiling, you have to redo the plumbing, you have to redo that would not be a routine maintenance item. Right. If the sprinkler head breaks off and you snap it off and you got to put a new sprinkler head on, that's routine maintenance, my definition. If you have to gut the whole thing out and refix it, raise them all up, that's clearly a capital expenditure.
So we need to define all this, because we all have different ideas about what this means, and like you said, ambiguity leads to free reign.
And right now, we have unlimited ambiguity the way this is currently written. The county executive has unlimited ambiguity, so all we're trying to do is give a little more tightness to it with my language here. It is, because right now, there is no constraints whatsoever on expenditures. And if I don't particularly like that, I don't think it's a good
We'll hear
thing.
from the sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. President. The reason I brought this forward was to protect this money coming in for the jail, that it's not used for unnecessary items. Mr. Sharon has even safeguarded that even more, and I agree with him, and that's why I put my name on it. That's the purpose that this is here, to protect that money of the sales tax so that it's not used for unnecessary things, and we have the money to build the jail.
And as the sponsors mentioned, the word unnecessary. When we see this, however the administration might interpret the term routine, we do know this body will always have this is not our last bite at the apple. When that moment comes, whether it's a redoing of the entire roof or whatever it might be, it's still coming back to this body. So even if there's not clarity around routine right now, we will not lose the clarity when the moment comes, when it comes. So let's keep that in mind. And let's also, against the backdrop, even of this amendment and all amendments, this is against the backdrop of a final dollar amount has not yet been determined around a court and a jail. This body, in its current iteration, will be using, we will be determining if every penny is going to go towards a jail and a court, which in a sense will leave a lot of this conversation moot. So we can consider that too as we weigh whether yes or no on any of the amendments. So Councilman Sweeney, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just the word unnecessary. You said it, and my colleague said it. We never vote on something unnecessary. It's another funding stream for extremely important and necessary governing of our Cuyahoga County, which is our responsibility. So that unnecessary thing, it's focused on this very specific thing, which is what we're considering right now. But the word unnecessary, I don't know what unnecessary thing we're talking about. So it's just more about where we're going to put the dollars that help govern and run our county. So I just wanted to share that as a reflection. When you mentioned it, I just wanted to throw it out.
Thank you, Councilman Sweeney. Are we ready to consider this, or is there any further discussion we want to have on this particular proposed amendment?
The only, I've heard my colleagues, and they would like a definition of the word routine. There's no reason we couldn't go to the accounting folks here and say, okay, give us a little more. If that's a word that bothers everybody, I have no problem as the sponsor, and I assume my co-sponsor, the objective, I think that Mr. Kelly hit it right on the head. We want these dollars to be used for this project. And pretty simple. And so all this was doing was making it one step a little tighter. And if the word routine leaves it a little too fuzzy, let's get a definition on it. I mean, every business has a specific term that they define as capital, whether it's $5,000, whether it's $10,000, whether it's $50,000, they draw a line as where a capital expenditure is. And it doesn't matter whether it's a roof or it doesn't matter whether it's a pipe, if the dollar amount. And so we can go ask our folks. I mean, we buy computers all the day. Is that a capital computer, or is it something that gets disposed of? And those are just magic numbers that every accounting organization makes that determination. And so I have no problem with working with staff, trying to come up with a little bit better definition, hold it because I clearly want to support Mr. Kelly's original concept with this, and it's to build upon it.
Councilman, actually, I think the language as you have crafted it, even with any potential gray area, I think this body is ready to vote on your amendment as you have crafted it. I think they're ready now without any further clarity.
Mr.
How do you
President, I don't
feel?
think we're ready.
Okay.
By no means. I think, well, first of all, there's no hurry with this. We've got a lot of time to deal with this. There's no hurry. I don't think the sponsor minds if we get a more precise definition, and I think that's what's in order. So I think it should stay in committee.
Yeah, the
Would
sponsor
anyone else
just,
like to weigh in on that?
yeah, the sponsor just wants to support Mr. Kelly. And if it leaves it fungible for you folks, let's get more definition for it. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I do want it to pass. So if that's what it takes, I'll get a little more clarity to that word.
Sounds like we need clarity.
Heard from Councilwoman Simon. Would anyone else like to comment on that?
Mr. President, may I?
Yes, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just the sponsor. We had a great debate. We had a back and forth. It seems like there's an opportunity to define routine. My world's 500,000 with a straight number, and whatever comes out. And Chairman Sharon wants to talk to the experts, and they can come back with some language, and then we'll vote on it. And if they call the question right now, I'll be more than happy to vote as well. So thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Any other comments? If not, we will hold it and give Councilman Strawn an opportunity to further clarify his language around routine, and then we will come back to this item. All right.
You're going to help me.
All right. With that, we will move on to our next item. At this time, it's time for executive session. All meetings of the Cuyahoga County Council are open to the public under the Ohio Open Meetings laws. Under that law, council may go into executive session during a meeting for specifically authorized purposes. During executive session, council confers outside of the hearing of the public. Council may not make any decisions about any matters in executive session. All decisions are made in public. This afternoon, the council will go into executive session for the purpose of discussing a collective bargaining matter. During this time, our live stream will be down, and we ask all those not specifically needed for the executive session to remain in council chambers. Council members will convene in the adjacent Committee Room A and will re-enter the meeting once the executive session is ended. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing a collective bargaining matter?
So moved.
Properly moved and seconded. Will the clerk now call the roll on the motion to go into executive session?
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher? Mr. Schron? Ms. Conwell? Ms. Turner?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens? Ms. Simon? Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Council President Jones?
Yes.
The motion carries.
All right, we convene for executive session. Oh. Yeah. Back on the record. Is there any miscellaneous business?
No miscellaneous business, but I just wanted the record to reflect from the beginning that Councilmember Simon as well as Councilmember Stevens is in attendance.
Excellent, thank you. If there is no other business, our meeting is adjourned, and we will convene our regular council meeting at 5 p.m. sharp.